Welcome back to the show, my fellow extraordinary Americans. For today's guest, we have Ray Charania. Ray is an entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and group home manager of South Asian descent from North Vancouver, Canada. Ray's parents got divorced when he was 16, and it was a very traumatic time for him. So he started hanging out with the wrong crowd, such as criminals and drug dealers, which eventually led him to live a very wild lifestyle with drugs and the club scene. After a lot of negative experiences, Ray, being at the end of his rope, went to rehab into the controversial Ibogaine program. Iboga is a root from Africa with very strong hallucinogenic properties similar to ayahuasca. It is a very powerful experience where he saw visions of his life leading down a dark path as well as overdosing. But after the treatment was done, he was a changed man, and his connection to spirituality deepened. He started meditating and doing yoga intensely. He also found his love for music again and started producing and recording hip hop. The songs he did very well locally, and he performed all over Canada and was even chosen to perform in Toronto in front of 3,000 people. He also got back to theater and acting as well as in healthcare. With his savings, he decided to start a group home for troubled youth. After doing that very challenging work for 2 years, he then moved to working with adults. For the past 5 years, Ray has been speaking at church and school fundraisers and spreading the message of recovery, success, and motivation, and letting people know that change is possible because if he can do it, so can they. Ray is somebody that I consider extremely extraordinary, and I'm honored to have him on the show. Ray, are you there?
I'm there. I am there, my friend.
Ray, it's so good to have you on the show. And I wanted to ask you, so I know you're an entrepreneur, you're a motivational speaker, and you're a group home manager. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
Yeah. So basically, I'm Gujarati. I'm Ismaili. My religion. And I'm not going to talk too much about that. I don't want to give any wrong information, but you can always Google it. It's about 50 million Ismailis worldwide. So yeah. So when I was young, I got in with the bad crowd. I started experimenting with different things, and I just got caught up. I got caught up. And when my parents got divorced, that was a very hard time for me. It was a very traumatic time for me. And I was very vulnerable. My parents were very young when they had me. My mom was 19. My dad was 21, immigrants to Canada. And the immigrant experience was a good experience for me. Canada is very multicultural. It's not as entertaining, our politics, as the US for sure. But I never experienced much discrimination, to be honest. Maybe when I was very young, when I first came to the country in elementary school, maybe a little bit, but everyone was very inclusive and loving and caring and kind, and really made me feel like I fit in.
So Ray, I mean, I know, like, I personally am an immigrant and I'm from India, right? And I became a naturalized U.S. citizen. And the immigrant experience is really unique for people that come from different nations, especially like from India, because it's a completely different culture, and the Western world it has so many different ways of thinking and acting. And so, what was your transition like over a period of time from like your teenage years, and how did you adapt to the American culture, and how did that shape all of the experiences that you had?
In the US, it's very similar. You have people with different beliefs, different races, different cultures. I don't know if you know Vivek Ramaswamy, who's a conservative. He's running for president. He's actually number two in the race right now as a conservative. So it just shows me that in Canada you can really, and America as well, you can really have your beliefs. You can be who you want to be. In other countries, you can't freely express yourself, say certain things. I think North America in general is blessed because we have this ability to really get to know each other and really connect on that deeper level. I find that my spirituality was really shaped during my younger years. I meditated for the first time when my parents were getting divorced. I was going through a really hard time, and I remember after I finished the meditation, I felt like I felt like a feather, like I was just floating, and I had never felt anything like that before. I had a book. My parents had a book by Deepak Chopra. It's called the Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, one of his best-selling books, and that's when I started to read it and started to learn about spirituality and being holistic. I felt that I didn't want to put in the work. They say faith without works is dead. I didn't want to put in the work. I felt that just by being a good person, everything should just fall on my lap. And, you know, when I got addicted to drugs and I realized that I was addicted, I tried to pray, and I said, God, please relieve me, you know, like of this addiction. But the truth is, you know, I wasn't willing, you know, to put in the work myself. And a lot of people, there's actually this one joke where there's this flood, and this guy is drowning, and a boat comes by, and he says, no, I don't need, God will help me. And then, you know, a plane comes by, and then he says, it's okay, God will help me. And then he ends up dying, and he goes to the afterlife, and he says, God, why didn't you help me? He said, I sent you a boat, I sent you a plane, you didn't take it, you know? So we have to do our part. You know, God will, you know, God sees the corners I don't see. He fills in the blanks in my life, and he provides opportunity, but I have to be the one to accept that opportunity. And I think a lot of people, they think that, you know, just by being a good person, everything's gonna fall in your lap. And that's like expecting a lion not to eat you because you're a good person. That's not the way the world works. So we really have to, you know, do our part. And a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, I know for me, God has really blessed me. But at the same time, I had to do the legwork, and I had to kind of, you know, do certain things. So I think for me, there's a, you know, they say spiritual. In spiritual, there's the word ritual. Spiritual, it's a ritual. So that means it's something that you do on a daily basis to maintain your spiritual condition. And there are certain things that I need to do on a daily basis to maintain my spiritual condition. I go to 12-step meetings, I meditate, I do yoga, I pray on my knees in the morning, I pray at night, I do service, I give back, I help people. These are things that I have to do to keep myself spiritually fit. Mm-hmm. And when I do those things, then really God can really come in. Because if I'm filled with anger and resentment, then the sunlight of the Spirit can't shine through me, because it's like a dirty window. If the window is dirty, the sunlight can't shine through that window. And once we clean the window, then the sunlight of the Spirit can shine through. And that's why I think it's very important for us to get rid of anger, to get rid of resentments. I had a lot of resentment towards my mom, my dad. And then I realized, why am I putting them on a pedestal? They were doing the best they could with what they had and what they knew at the time. They were human beings, just like you, Cosmos, just like me. They're human beings. So Cosmos, I had to really see that. And now I have an amazing relationship with them. Right? And now I've gotten rid of the angers and the resentments, because hurt people hurt people. If somebody hurts me, that means they're spiritually sick. And what I have to do is I have to have compassion for them. The same compassion I would have for a sick friend with cancer. That's how I look at it. And I've had situations where people have cut me off on the road, been rude or mean, and I have just, of course, I wanted to react. And human beings, that's what separates human beings from animals. Animals are very instinctive. They have a thought and they act on it.
Mhm.
With us, we can have a thought, but we don't have to act on it. I was very impulsive before, so I didn't know that there was this break. And I think that for me was kind of God restoring me to sanity, right? So when I changed my life around, I would see my old friends. I would see my old stomping grounds where I used to hang out. And sometimes I would be driving by and my head would say, well, why don't we just turn into this place, this dispensary or this pub or whatever it is? And then I say, wait a minute, that's not good for me. That's not healthy. I could see somebody that I don't like on the street, and my first thought could be, oh, I want to go up and mouth them off or hit them or hurt them. But I could go up and shake their hand instead. So the ability that we don't have to act on every thought that we have, because not all our thoughts are healthy.
Yeah, Ray. So like a lot of people, they never come out of, like, let's say, like a drug addiction, or like they go into these places of darkness in their life. They never get out of it. But for you, obviously, you had a deep spiritual experience, and that seemed like the transition point. So could you tell me and the audience a little bit more about where you were before, like what is the transition point and how that led to the life you have right now?
So recovery, getting clean, finding a new way of life. These things, I would go to a 12-step meeting, and there would be maybe 15 people in there. The truth is, if everybody who really needed to change their life and to find a new way of life was attending, you would not even find a seat. So why did I make it and my friends that I grew up with overdosed, in jail? My two best friends, one is dead, one is in and out of jail all the time. His mom is always calling me worried. I can't, that's a tough question. Why was I able to turn my life around? And I just always had a feeling that when I was living that negative lifestyle, there was a voice inside me saying, this is not God's will for you. Some people believe in reincarnation. Some exactly, and I do too. And I feel like I have lived many lifetimes, and I'm tired of coming back all the time. So I feel like I want to do things right. Some people in this lifetime, they might not be emotionally ready to, their spirit might not be emotionally ready to deal with all the stuff that's going on. I've had friends, they're like in denial. Denial is not just a river in Egypt, it's a real thing. I have friends that are in denial. I have friends that this is just the way I am, I can't change. I feel like you really have to hit dirt. You have to hit a bottom. There has to be where you're totally powerless, and your life is unmanageable, and your whole life is in shambles. And it's not that I was on Skid Row, but emotionally I was on Skid Row, because emotionally I had the same feelings that the people on Skid Row were going through. Yeah, maybe I was in my house and I have a family and all that, but emotion, and I could see I was barely functioning. I would, and I didn't want to live like that. And if somebody wants to live like that, that's okay. I'm not here to tell people how to live. I'm not gonna be following the listeners after this podcast and watching what they're doing. I want people to live their lives, and maybe that looks like something else. But for me, I just could not live like that. I just felt that I had a higher purpose, that God put me here for a reason, that I really need to do it right. I want to make a difference. I want to give back. I want to help people, and I want to tell my story. I feel that's God's will for me. Sometimes God doesn't give us what we want. and it's a blessing. There was this gentleman who had a job interview on 9/11, and he's driving to the job interview. He really needs this job. And he's about a few blocks away from the towers, and his car breaks down. Now he's going to be late. Now he says, I have a family. What am I going to do? Right? Well, lo and behold, if he would have been on time, he would have been dead. So sometimes God is actually looking out for us, and we are being tested to be molded into the people that we're meant to be. And some people, maybe they're not ready, and it's not easy changing. Like, I'm powerless over other people. I can't change you, Cosmos. I can't change anybody. I don't have that power. How can I control another human being when I can barely control myself? I tell myself I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, and I'm lucky if I make it 3. So a human being is not like a sculpture that you can mold and make them the way that you want to be. They have to want it. They have to want it. If you don't want it, then the door is not going to open. And you have to really want a better life for yourself. You have to really have that vision. And if you have that vision, you can do it. You can go through the withdrawals. You can go through the emotional pain, starting your life again. I feel like I had to start my life again. And I have faith. I have faith in a higher power. For me, having faith in a higher power is so important, because that's where I get my strength from. I always believed in God growing up, but I never had a relationship with a power greater than myself. I never had a relationship with God. My God was like a Santa Claus police God. Give me this, get me out of this, right? Today, I talk to God on a daily basis. He's my best friend. When you have a friend, you keep in touch with your friends. You don't just call them once a year or 2 times a year when you need something. That's not a true friend, right? So I have this relationship with a power greater than myself, which is so profound and so powerful. And that is what fills the void inside me. Because if you don't fill that God-sized hole with spirituality and God, then something else is going to fill that hole. The devil, the negative, the drugs, all the toxic stuff is going to fill that hole if I don't fill that hole with the right things.
Ray, one thing that came to my mind while you're talking about God is that, we always end up worshiping, even the atheists and the agnostics, they worship one thing or the other. It's determined by what they're obsessed over. It could be a celebrity, it could be politicians, it could be it could be the TV, like reality shows, like whatever you're obsessed with, you spend the most amount of time ideating on becomes your reality and becomes your way of thinking. So you might as well as ideate on the right things, like such as self-improvement or like a relationship with a higher power, because everything is part of that one entity, right? So literally, there's a saying in spirituality: if you're ideating on something else, like a celebrity or whatever, it's not better than idol worship or like money or status and power. Like, you're basically worshiping an idol, but it's like a different sort. But you want to do something that's deeper. And I think that's the problem with society these days, is that they are more into the idol worship of things that are temporary and elusive. But if we go within ourselves for something greater than ourselves, then we end up doing things that are much greater than what we could have done if we had a self-centered life.
There is no recovery God that you have to worship. This is not a cult. I'm not in a cult. I'm not spreading that, that there's a certain God that you have to worship. You just have to have a power greater than yourself. And it has to be loving, and it has to be greater than you. Now, if you look at there's a power out there, in the cosmos. There's a power out there in the cosmos that makes your hair grow, that makes your nails grow, that makes a baby, that a woman can have a baby, but she's doing 20 other things, and this baby is just getting created naturally in perfection. We have the seasons. We have the mountains. I didn't create all this. I can put my hand out right now. I can't even create a grain of sand, cosmos. I can't create nothing. So somebody or something created all this. So to me, there has to be a creator, because I'm a creation of the creator. So there has to be a creator. And it can be nature. And you know, we also used to say, you know, in AA, they have a saying, they said, G-O-D, the group can be your God. G-O-D, group of drunks, great outdoors.
Yeah.
Good orderly direction. How about we just do good orderly direction, right? Let's just do that. And over time, the more you practice, the more you seek, your vision, your concept of your higher power will change, will grow. And then that relationship can start to evolve. But it doesn't have to be a certain, I'm not preaching a certain religion, I'm not preaching a certain dogma. I'm just saying that there is a power out there, and we need to connect. It's like my cell phone here, Cosmos. If I don't plug my cell phone to my charger, it doesn't work properly.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get on my knees in the morning and get charged up with that energy, then I don't work properly.
No, that's deep, because yeah, you're right about the cell phone. Like, yeah, it needs charging on a regular basis, the same way we as people need some sort of like spirituality or something to charge ourselves, because otherwise we'll just get worn out over a period of time. Yeah, there's a lot to uncover here. But Ray, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what was the biggest lesson you learned during your time from the transition to your ventures in entrepreneurship and music and all of that?
What I notice is that I'm not in charge. I'm not in control. You can have two brothers that open up a convenience store, one on this side of the town and one on the other side of the town. One could do really, really well, and one might not do well. I've learned about loyalty, that relationships are important, that not everybody has your best interests at heart. There's a lot of people, especially when I first changed my life around, that I grew up with, there was a lot of jealousy. There was a lot of, crabs in the bucket. If you've heard of the late, great
Oh
hip hop.
yeah, that's like the crab in the bucket philosophy. Yeah, I know that only too well. Yeah.
And my favorite hip hop artist, actually, who passed away in 2019, Nipsey Hussle, who was an entrepreneur, who was using his music, who had opened up a store, a plaza, who had bought the plaza in the ghetto where he lived, and started giving jobs to the convicts and helping people. And he was really a philanthropist, and his music was very motivational, and it still is. And he was killed, outside of the store. This amazing man helping so many people, because there was jealousy. There was jealousy that he was successful, right? So you have to be careful. Not everybody has your best interests at heart. I'm very careful about where I go, what events I attend, what kind of people I'm around, because you have to be careful. You don't know who's out there. So you want to surround yourself with people that are going in the same direction as you, that have the same vision. I know the power of groups. And I know that when you have like-minded people in the same room or the same building, the networking that can happen, it's so amazing. When I'm so busy with my work, I go walk my dog, maybe I might see some people, but I'm not going to meet entrepreneurs or people like yourself, Cosmos, if I don't put myself out there. If I don't put myself out in the community and let people know who I am and what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. And that's when I really thrive, is when I'm connecting with like-minded people, when I'm helping, when I'm of service, when I'm a guiding light, a beacon of hope for people to succeed, to say, you know what, Ray, you did this, and people have come up to me and said, I've heard your story, and I've had this, I'm hanging out with bad friends, and my parents are fed up, and my life is going down, and you did it, I feel I can do it. So what I'm trying to say is, hang out with good people, people that are loyal, and everything is not in our outcome, and we cannot control people. We cannot control people, and we cannot control outcomes. All I asked a friend of mine, and I said, what is the difference between my will and God's will? Because I was very confused at the time. So he said, is it kind? Is it patient? Is it tolerant? Is it loving? Is it good for me? Is it good for you? Now, if you can answer yes to all those questions, then you're on the right track.
Wow, that's, I mean, the last part about what like how do you differentiate between your own will and God's will, like that's something that I have to struggle with, because I try to do God's will, but I also have like my own selfish desires, and it's always a battle between what I want and versus, like, intuitively I know what God wants me to do, like he wants me to do things for the greater good and everything, but sometimes like I want to live like a selfish life, and then it's becomes a struggle between my micro self and the greater power. So I know that feeling.
And I've been down in life, and I've been up in life, and I know that money doesn't equal happiness. We have this neighborhood not too far away. It's called British Properties, like Millionaires Row, right? There's people there committing suicide all the time, right? These are successful people. Money is a tool, but it's like blood. We have to keep it circulating. We have to give back. We have to help each other to feel fulfilled. Money on its own, and I know that if anyone listening right now, Cosmo, is having financial problems, they're probably telling me that I'm crazy, that money is the answer to everything. But unfortunately, it's not. And once you attain money and you realize that you're still unfulfilled, you can buy a new car, you're happy for about a month or so, and then that feeling wears off.
Ray, if you went to India and you told this thing, like all the starving people in India would be like, man, what is this guy saying? Because I agree with what he was saying, that yeah, a lot of the people with financial, like, money, it can only make you happy to a certain point. You have to earn a certain amount. But like the thing with like successful entrepreneurs and like successful business, that after that certain point, more money is not going to equate to happiness. Like there's not going to be a difference between $1 million versus a net worth, or like $2 million net worth. Like your happiness is not going to increase. Like there's like an amount that was put like in an article sometime. I think it was like $100,000 or like $70,000 or something like that. But it could increase depending on inflation or whatever. But after a certain point, it does not equate to more happiness. That's true. But like when you're like struggling, when you're in a survival or scarcity, you're going through scarcity and survival mindset, and like the conditions are like that, then it becomes very important.
And that's why I'm totally not supportive 100% of the, and I am supportive of it, but I think a lot of people have misunderstood the secret. Rhonda Byrne, The Secret. And if a starving child in Africa or India thinks of a cheeseburger, they're not going to get a cheeseburger. So it doesn't, it's not that you think of something and that thing is going to happen. You have to embody it. It's like they call it like living backwards in time. So you have a goal, okay? You have a goal, and then you wake up, and then every day, every decision you make, you have to ask yourself, is this going towards my goal, or is this going against my goal? Living backwards in time, right? Because God is not going to show you the process, because the process is what is going to mold you to be who you were meant to be. When I had a beater car, I had a shitty car, right? But in my mind, it was a Mercedes. The way I took care of it, the way I embodied it, it was a Mercedes car. Today I'm driving a Mercedes car. This is who I am. And then then the universe just has to catch up to who you are.
But let's say like who you are is not like you have an ideal state of who you want to be, and then like this is a thing that a lot of people like that are doing entrepreneurship, they or like they are on their way to becoming a successful businessman, right? They have who they once were, and then they have an idea of who they want to be, and then there's this transition point where they're slowly transitioning to the new person, but then the old person is like, that's not you. Who do you think you are? This is bullshit. Like I know you must have had that at some point, right? Like there was a state where you were like the drug addict, right? And then there was a state where you did entrepreneurship and you succeeded in your ventures and all of that stuff. And then the old you kept resurfacing probably, and it was like, well, that's not you. This is who the real person is. Like, so what would be your advice to somebody that's struggling during a transition point between the new self or who they want to be ideally, the ideal person, and then who they once were?
It's like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. You want to grow. You want to evolve. You don't want to be the same person at 50 that you were at 30 or 20. You want to grow. You want to evolve. That's very important. What I would say is that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail, right? I relapsed twice, which I'm going to get more into in my book, which we'll talk about later, Cosmos, but I didn't get it right away. I had bumps in the road, right? I got into a relationship. I was very immature. The relationship became very toxic. It became very unhealthy, controlling, jealousy, insecurity. I was not emotionally mature to handle those because I started using and partying and doing all those things at a young age, at 16. So when I finally turned my life around in my 20s, emotionally, I was still 16. I had to catch up. So I don't want anyone to think that it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it, because right living, there's this, when you are involved in right living, there's a certain self-esteem, there's a certain confidence you get, there's a certain pleasure, there's a certain feeling you get when you're doing the right thing and you're living on your path. What I also say is give yourself some time. If you tried getting clean, sober, whatever, and you only lasted 3 weeks and you went back, that's not enough time to see a contrast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give it up for 1 year, okay? And if you don't like your life after 1 year, your misery is always refundable, Cosmos. Your misery is always refundable. The liquor stores are not going anywhere. They're just getting bigger. The drug houses and they're not going anywhere. They're always going to be there. Just try it. Give yourself a year. Give yourself 6 months, and just look at your life. Look at your confidence. Look at yourself. Look at your self-esteem. Look at your ambition. Look how many things you're accomplishing, and then you can say, okay, this is my life, living in my purpose, living in recovery, living in spirituality. This is what my year has been like, and this was my life before. And then you can make that contrast yourself and see.
So Ray, like this is there's a continuation of this, and also like I wanted to ask you, what is the biggest challenge do you think from your own perspective you had over like you think you had in your career, and how did you go about overcoming it? Like with regards to, yeah.
I always felt like I could help everybody. That if I told my story, that I could help everybody. When I was working one-on-one, with as a motivational life coach or a counseling situation, and I had a few people in the beginning, and they just kept going back to the old life again. They just couldn't get it. And I said, what the hell? So there's two types of spiritual experiences that you can have. There's that burning bush, white light that I had, right? That's not that common though, right? The more common is the educational variety, which is during your journey, you have little glimpses, little awakenings, little enlightenments, little things. So unfortunately, I can't help everyone, and that's okay. Even if I help one person in Cosmos, but I consider myself a success. If I can help one person change their life, and if I can help more, that's even better.
Ray, I love it, man. I'm really proud of what you're doing, because yeah, like, you know, your story can, there's somebody could be listening to it right now, and then this could be inspiring them, and it could just, it's that one nugget they need, and then it creates a switch in their mind. And there was one question I wanted to ask you, Ray, was that, let's say there was a time machine and you could go back in time to, and from right now to your 16-year-old self, and you could have a conversation with him, what would you tell him?
So what I would like to say before I touch on that is that sometimes we don't know what's good for us. We do not know what is good for us. My best thinking got me in that negative light. So sometimes we don't know. We don't always know what's good for us. Like I wanted to be a famous hip hop artist when I was 16, but that's when I was still partying crazy, drugs, women, everything. Now, if God would have given me that, I'm sure I would have overdosed, because the way I was living, I was not ready to have that. If I was given that, it would have been detrimental for me. And can you just ask that question again, Cosmos? I just want that last question.
Oh yeah, so like if you could go back in the time machine and talk to your 16-year-old self, and you could have a conversation with him and give him advice, what would it be?
Cosmos, I would tell him, don't change a thing. Because everything I went through made me who I am today. If I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be this person. I wouldn't be this eccentric, energetic, just on the go. I love myself. So, and everything I went through, yeah, it was painful. It was super, super, super painful. But it made me who I am today. And I'm proud of who I am today. So don't live in regret. Don't live in they say Deepak Chopra says, the past is history, the future is a mystery, the present is a gift. That's why we call it the present. It's a gift, right?
Yeah.
They say if you have 1 foot in yesterday and 1 foot in tomorrow, then you're pissing on today. Whatever happened, it doesn't matter. It doesn't define you. Look at Oprah Winfrey, okay? She was prostituting she was a teenage prostitute. She got pregnant by somebody way older when she was young, had a stillborn baby, living on the streets, just a horrible lifestyle. Now, if I told you, Cosmos, there's a woman who is selling herself on the street, who is had a stillborn baby by some guy that she just randomly slept with, and is on the street and living a very dangerous lifestyle. I would ask you, Cosmos, what would you think the future of someone like that would be?
On a probability rate, not pretty good. But
Okay,
I in my life I've seen a lot of like comebacks, of like people that you would have thought that they could never have succeeded or whatever from what their environment was, but they still pulled it off. So like I know it's possible, but probably not very good,
That's Oprah Winfrey. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you've been through. And I've been wrong a lot too. I've slept on people that I didn't think that it was gonna, and then they end up really making it. And that's why I don't judge anybody anymore. right? And I'm sure a lot of people felt that way with me too, that this guy's a write-off, his life is going in a negative way, you know. The only thing I can control is myself. If I allow other people's opinions to affect me, then they are my God, they are my ruler. They have so much, I've given them so much power that they're able to get me out of my normal being and act out. And a lot of people, they want a reaction. I used to just, have a short temper sometimes. I would act out. But why would I give somebody that much power to get me out of myself? What other people think of me is none of my business. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm somebody's cup of tea. And not everyone's going to resonate with my message, but some people will resonate with my message. And the truth is, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What you went through, you got to, instead of wishing things were different, you can use that as an asset to help people.
Like, this is actually some really deep stuff, Ray, because a lot of people, when they have bad things happening to them, they're like, man, God, why did you do this to me? And I have like the worst, like in India, they would say I have like the worst karma of all. And like, this is actually disaster. But what we're getting over here in this podcast is that you can have the worst experience ever, and you can turn it into something that can help a lot of people. And basically, it's basically kind of like a story, right? Like, oh, you were over here, and then you have now reached here. And then that's the thing that God wants us to do, because God knows that if you have somebody like on a Krishna or Buddha level, like if there's somebody who's already perfect from the beginning, nobody would get inspiration from it. So they'll be like, oh, he's just like a high level person. A person's already a saint. I could never reach there. How can I do? If somebody came from the bottom and made it to the top, and it shared with them the process and the mindset of how they did it, and they were like, okay, this guy can do it. I can do it as well. It changes everything, you know.
Cosmos, and it's a victim mentality. It's a victim mentality. I honestly don't even believe that, and I could be wrong, I don't know, but I feel that even enlightened people go through stuff. It's just that they process it differently. I think the human experience is the human experience. Victimhood, victim mentality. I would not be here. I got into it because my parents got divorced, because I'm from a different country, or people weren't nice to me, or like, it's always something else. If you don't take responsibility for your own life, once you're 18, you are responsible for your own life. Nobody owes you anything.
Ray, if you tell that to an Indian kid in India, they'll be like, "What are you saying, Ray?" Because like the parents take care of you way after 18, But yeah, as you were saying,
yeah, and that's true. That's true. And if you're lucky enough to have that, good for you. That's amazing. But in reality, that is a traditional thing. You are responsible for your own life. If you blame other people for your circumstances, then you will never get out of those circumstances, because you're not taking responsibility. You're just blaming. It's like this guy's, it's like, and that's why in recovery, when we do a step 4, we write down a list of all our resentments. Okay, because with us, Cosmos, we say, this person hurt me. But that's as far as we go. We stop it there. But you have to go further than that, Cosmos. You have to say, what part did I play in this? What did I do to get the ball rolling? Right? Oh yeah, my wife left me. But what? Well, I cheated on her. I was abusive to her. Well, oh shit. Well, no wonder she left me. You know what I mean? So we have to look at our part. We always have a part in everything that we do. And even if it's something that we don't have a part in, like there was a girl that came up to me and she said, Ray, you talk about writing down all your resentments and looking at your part and taking responsibility. Well, I was molested when I was a kid. What part do I have in that? And I had to really think about that. And I said, the part that you have in that is that you're still holding on to it. And you need to let it go because it's no longer serving you anymore.
Wow. Like I'm blown away, Ray. Like that's really deep stuff. Yeah, like because you just hit the nail on the head. Most of us tend to hold on to things way past its due. Like I know it's bad things happen to us, but we just have to move on, because other we sometimes like the hardest thing to do is like just like love and forgive and just don't forget but like forgive, but like in the process you let things go, and in the long term you end up being much more happier. But it's something that's really hard to do for a lot of people, but it's the right thing to do, but it's like the hardest thing to do.
Let go and let God. Holding on to things keeps us sick. It's not good for our health. And if you are of the reincarnation belief, you might have to come back and deal with that because you didn't deal with it, right? You have to deal with these things. They will come back. They will come back. If you don't deal with stuff, you have to deal with your life. You have to deal with what's going on. It will come back.
No, I mean like in my belief system, I understand like karma, right? Or like the law of cause and effect. So there's like actions that you have over lifetimes, and then you have like the reactions, and like you have to face them at some point. And so it's you have to like it's kind of like I do know that I have to take responsibility for my actions, at least like in the present, because I know what my actions do in the present moment will dictate my future life, or like even my environment in this life itself. So yeah, like I'm very aware of like my thoughts and actions, and we have to go about this world accordingly.
And I've sat with clients who haven't dealt with their childhood stuff, and you could see how it is affecting their life today. In different areas of their life, it's creeping up because they haven't dealt with it. So you have to deal with these things, and how you deal with it is you write it down, but you can't do this alone. You have to do it with someone, and you have to write it down. You have to look at your part, and then you have to let it go. And then remember, the person that hurt you is sick. He says, hurt people. So instead of holding a grudge, let's be compassionate for that person. Let's pray for that person. I had such a resentment against my ex-girlfriend at one time. And a friend of mine said, I want you to pray for her. Every morning, I want you to pray for her, that she has the best life, that everything that she wants happens for her. I was so upset with her. I said, how can I do that? And, after 2 weeks of doing that, my resentment was gone. And, I realized that, she was just doing what she knew best from her level of consciousness, and that it really was never about me. It was really her own issues that she hadn't dealt with. So I think it's very important to forgive, to let go. And remember, the people that hurt us are sick. They're sick people. We have to have compassion for these people. This revenge and holding on and anger. And then also make amends for past wrongs. I don't want to live my life looking over my shoulder because I screwed some guy over. Make amends. If you because this stuff, you got to clean this stuff out. It's like dirt. It's like gunk. You gotta get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
And I've done it, and you feel so light, and you feel really, really light. And if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out on how to do this process of cleaning out the self, of letting go of anger, because if you don't, see what happens when you don't get rid of all that stuff, it festers, and then eventually you need a glass of wine to take the edge off. You need a joint to take the edge off. You need drugs, right? So that has to be removed. so that the sunlight of the Spirit can shine through you, use you as a vessel. We are vessels for God. I didn't ask to be here. He put me here for a purpose. He felt that I should be here. I don't get to ask that I want to be here, and I don't get to say when I want to leave. That's not up to me. So I didn't come here willingly. I was put here on this planet for a purpose. In this big world, God felt that this Ray was needed to complete the thing, right? And actually, I wanted to read you this. Hold on, it was just a quote, and it's just a beautiful. Okay, look at that. How cool is it that the same God that created mountains and oceans and galaxies looked at you and thought the world needed one of you too?
Wow. That is pretty deep. Yeah. No, it's true. So,
Yeah.
so Ray, as a I want to ask you so many questions, but like the time is obviously coming to an end. So I wanted to ask you about your book, The 12 Steps to a Better Life. Can you that you're writing sometime next year? Can you tell me and the audience the premise of that and more about that book?
So the 12 steps to a better life is a lot of what we talked about today, is a lot about letting go of anger, resentments, realizing that the people that hurt us are sick. The 12 steps are not something that I invented. They were actually invented in the 30s by a gentleman named Bill Wilson, who was the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. His story was that he was inspired to write these 12 steps. Now, these 12 steps are life-changing, and I've worked them in my life. But, so many people tell me, like, regular people can use these 12 steps. Why are these 12 steps only reserved for people with a gambling addiction or an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction? Humanity can benefit from these steps. So what I've done is I've taken the 12 steps of recovery and formatted them and put them in a way that everyone can use them. And instead of saying, I'm powerless over drugs, or I'm powerless over gambling, or I'm powerless over alcohol, and my life has become unmanageable, I'm powerless over everything. And I need a higher power to restore me to sanity. And being restored to sanity is what I said earlier, right? Is I'm driving down the street and I see a pub, or you see your old friends or your old dealer or whatever, and you're driving down and you see that, and you might have that old thought come back and say, just very lightly, oh, maybe I should pop in and just say hello. But then you say, no. You got to play out the tape, right? Because a lot of times we just think about instant gratification, right? I'm stressed out and I need relief. And your mind is not working right. So, meditation is not an option. Sharing with a friend is not an option. You go back to what you know.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely recommend my audience to check out that book when it does come out, because the people need to know more about this stuff, and like how to deal with life and what are the right mindsets and actions. Because if you have the right perspective on anything, you can go through like a lot of life. If you know that sometimes even if bad things happen to you, this can be utilized to help a lot of people, then yeah, that's that's it's all about perspective. So Ray, on a different note, is there any other projects that you're working on that you would want the audience to get a glimpse into?
I run a residential group home for people with mental health issues, older individuals, autism, schizophrenia, fetal alcohol syndrome. And so I'm really, just focused on that. In the future, I do have plans to grow. I have a few guys I'm working with right now, but I want my home to grow. And right now, it's just about getting this message out. I feel like we are in a time in society right now where people are very divided. If you look at the political landscape, if you look at the war in Israel. If you look at everything that's going on, we are very divided. There's a lot of division. We need to come together. We need to let go of all this anger. We need to let go of all this hate. We need to find love. We need to find peace. We need to connect with each other again. COVID really put a damper on a lot of things. That we are still feeling the effects of COVID-19 on the economy. We're still feeling the effects of COVID-19 on relationships. Abuse went up, spousal abuse went up, drug addiction went up. We have to get back. We are at a very pinnacle time in our history. We are at the puberty stage of our evolution right now. Like we are just at that spring right now. So I think this is the time. This is the time you have to. There's a lot of people that are really lost right now, that really need meaning, that really want to connect. And I was one of those people. And it's kind of like, if I can get out of the hole, then I can reach my hand out and help someone else get out of that hole too. And it's not going to be all unicorn and rainbows. There's going to be some emotions in struggle. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's good. It's good to go through things, right? And everything that how I feel doesn't determine how I live my day. So if I feel like crap, if I said I'm going to go to the gym, if I said I'm going to meditate, if I said I'm going to do yoga and that's on my schedule, check this out, Cosmos. You can't think your way. You can't think your way into a better way of living. You got to live your way into a better way of thinking. Take the body, the mind will follow.
Totally.
So no, you can, you could say, oh, I don't want to go to that meeting, right? I'm tired. Your mind, but that, that's something that needs to get done for your future or your well-being. So you do it. So how you feel should not determine how you plan your day. Whether you feel like crap or you feel good, you have stuff you need to do, you get it done. And then what starts to happen is it becomes more like a routine. And then you automatically, becomes a new way of life, and you enjoy this new way of life.
No, totally. So it's very true. So Ray, how can our audience connect with you and get to know more about you and like the work that you're doing?
Okay, so I'm at a place in my life where I really want to work with people one-on-one. I really want to help people. And people say, it helps me. Like, it's funny. It's like people think, well, you're helping me, but it helps me too, because it reminds me of how I was. It reinforces mental positive patterns when I'm working with people. If you want to find me on Instagram, Real Ray C, REALRAYC, Real Ray C. You can even find me on Facebook at Ray Charania. So, we're at a good place right now. I'm very accessible. That might not always be the case, but right now, this is my mission. This is my marathon that I want to get this message out there, and I'm gonna I'm putting it all out there right now.
Ray, that is so awesome. Like, I'm so grateful like that you took the time to do this podcast with me and share like your experiences and your mindset around how you overcame your experiences, because there are people out there that could be listening right now that could be inspired, and they're like, okay, I'm going to turn my life around and I can do this. And so it means a lot that you took the time to do this. And I would definitely want you to come back at a later time to the show.
Cosmos, I'm a big fan of your work. Honored to be here. Thank you very much for having me. And I really respect, what you're doing and your vision and what you're trying to do with this podcast. And I wish you nothing but the best. And if you ever need anything, I'm just a phone call away.
Thank you so much, Ray. And I want to conclude this show by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us. It's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now.